He's the same age as the Harbour Bridge. I'm talking about the dog on the Tuckerbox, located outside Gundagai, halfway between Sydney and Melbourne on the Hume Highway. Both dog and bridge were unveiled in 1932 and each has its obvious place in Australian history. But people in and around Gundagai have always wanted the dog to whistle up more people and bring more money into the district. Problem is, the statue of the dog on the Tuckerbox actually sits 8 kilometres from the town centre. With a population of only 2,500, Gundagai is now pinning its hopes for rejuvenation on a makeover for the dog. The local council wants to redevelop the site where the statue is located. Expressions of interest close in just 1 week. But as Jeff Sims reports, the outcome may well see history revised and the true story emerge about what the dog really did to the Tuckerbox.
Everybody loves the dog.
Well, the dog's been here since I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
Everyone knows it. Every Australian knows it. It's here.
We've been coming here for, 50 years that I know of, plus.
You come here, you stop off here, and this is the place.
There's a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack along the road to Gundagai.
The place has clearly seen better days. It might be a landmark, but the operator of the kiosk, as a kiosk, packed it in years ago.
I think basically it's tired, it's worn out, it's old. Like every commercial development, you need to keep reinventing yourself.
You want food now? You bring it. You buy it at the fast food outlets just a couple of 100 metres down the highway and knock it back while contemplating the canine. Or you set up your own picnic. The main line inside the kiosk these days is skin. Not very appetising unless you're a moth. On 2.5 hectares around the dog, the council wants to see rather more.
Some parkland, a commercial development, because I think that's going to be essential to be able to fund the works that are required to upgrade the dog and the ruins.
I could see possibilities of even a motel being built here. There's certainly sufficient land for that sort of development.
There once was a pub here, Joe Carberry's, and there were bullock teams too. Every bullocky had a dog, and everybody knows the story of the dog on the Tuckerbox. Do you know the story of the dog?
I don't.
I do.
What's
The old swaggy died and the dog sat on the Tuckerbox until someone found him, as far as I know.
Well, that's one version. And bearing absolutely no resemblance to the truth. Do you know why the dog is sitting on the Tuckerbox?
No, he's just sitting there. I've got no idea why.
Then stick around. You will soon learn the true story of the dog that was so famous the local monumental mason Frank Rusconi took on the challenge of sculpting him in metal. For Rusconi, it was a change from marble, from angels and crucifixes. How he found the time to do it was a miracle. Working 3 hours a day after work, Rusconi was carving a Baroque marvel in miniature. This alone took him 28 years.
This is Rusconi's marble masterpiece.
Rusconi himself settled for a plain granite slab across his own grave, but it's in good company, just a monumental stone's throw from the grave of Captain Moonlight, one of Gundagai's celebrated bushrangers. But back to Rusconi's statue of the dog, surrounded by a moat that's inevitably seen as a wishing well. To youngsters like Declan Marr, who's 8, it's magic. And you can tell me what your wish was.
I want to go home.
The poor lad has only just arrived, and he's going to miss out on all sorts of stuff. The legendary story of Dad and Dave and Snake Gully might have been set on Queensland's Darling Downs, but what would Steel Rudd know? Gundagai claims the lot. It's a long story, but back once more to the dog. Even the birds here lie doggo, prostrating themselves in awe of the dog, born on a piece of anonymous doggerel. Those with tender ears should find a soundproof kennel, while the former local newspaperman and therefore authority, Pat Sullivan, tells it warts and all.
As I was coming down Conroy's Gap, I heard a maiden cry, "There goes Bill the Bullocky, he's bound for Gundagai. No better poor old bugger ever earned an honest crust. No better poor old bastard never drug a whip through dust. His team got bogged at the 5 Mile Creek. Bill cursed and swore and cried, "If Nobby don't get me out of this, I'll tattoo his bloody hide." But Nobby strained and broke the yoke, poked out the leader's eye. Then the dog shit in the Tuckerbox, 5 miles from Gundagai.
Original and unsanitised. The last line evolved to, and the dog sat on the Tuckerbox, suggesting the dog was guarding the Tuckerbox.
Rubbish, rot, balderdash. That is the greatest load of garbage, and whoever's been responsible for perpetrating that should be taken out the back and flogged with a big green rose stick.
The council seems to share the sentiment.
Well, the original version is excellent, and I'll stick by the original version. I think it's great, and it's so realistic.
The dog was in the road. He probably got a kick in the guts from old Bill the Bullocky. So, what did the dog do? "I'll get my revenge," said the dog. He got his revenge in a way that's never been forgotten.
Yeah, well, I guess it made sure nobody else was going to eat the bullock driver's food, wasn't it?
So whichever version of the story you prefer, it's the back end of the dog that's significant, either because it showed his contempt for his boss or his loyalty. But this is not just any old dog. Hang on, that's precisely what it is. Any old dog who accompanied the Bullockys who opened up this country. So you'd think they'd at least have given him a name. Most other celebrity animals have a name.
Lassie.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed.
Come on, Skippy, come on, my little beauty.
But the dog is different.
Why does the dog need a name? The dog doesn't need a name. It's nonsense. The dog is just the dog.
Really? Anonymous, like his creator? Tell me, do you know the dog's name?
No.
He doesn't have one. But the dog has the pulling power of an old-fashioned bullock team. Or so the council hopes.
I would have thought there are some big corporate investors around the major cities who would recognise the marketing potential of the dog.
Some people in Gundagai believe the dog should be brought into the town itself to lure the tourists off the highway. There's plenty to see in this settlement above the Murrumbidgee floodplain, even if a lot of it has gone off the rails. It's just that the passers-by pass by.
I reckon it's a good idea to bring the dog into town because it's going to make more for the Gundagai town and for the whole of Australia.
The whole world. But it's not going to happen.
Certainly, as far as council's concerned, it is dead and buried. The dog will definitely stay where it is.
But you can't shift the dog because that's where he belongs.
So the dog stays on his island amid some development. Maybe. Time is running out. Perhaps the council is barking up the wrong tree. How many expressions have you had now with a week before the deadline?
It's a worrying figure. It's nil at the moment.